On the 11th day of April in the year 1087, 3 ships pulled into the harbour of Andriaki, port to the ancient town of Myra. This southwestern corner of Asia Minor was a prosperous trading post, routinely receiving merchant sailors from around the known world. The 3 ships presently docking at its coast, however, did not appear to be manned by merchants. 2 figures emerged from the ponderous wooden frame of the central vessel. They were Jerusalem pilgrims the crew had picked up at Antioch. One Greek, the other French. They started for the outskirts of Myra, rounding off the hills and surveying twilight-coloured fields. Returning to port, their optimistic demeanour was enough confirmation. All the same, one of them raised his voice to rehearse what Italian he had picked up on board. Non ci sono Turci, for in those days the Turkish advance would soon conquer Asia Minor. With this, the boats revealed their cargo. A multitude of pilgrims, 47 in all, disembarked in rows, walking with processional dignity through the port towards the centre of Myra. It was the basilica that interested them, fortunate storehouse of the body of one of the most revered saints in all of Christendom, St. Nicholas. The 4 custodians of the basilica scrambled to attend so large a party as now confronted them. The newcomers asked to see the grave of the holy confessor Nicholas. The guardians showed the pilgrims where oblation was made, but this did not satisfy the group, which wanted to make sure the site was not merely nominal, and that the holy body was not being kept in some hidden vault. This, however, aroused suspicion in the guardians. Why such vehemence? Could it be that these were thieves looking to grave rob so venerable a house of supplication? If it were so, said the 4, imprudently, perhaps but bravely, and being all of one mind, they would sooner die than permit so vile a desecration. At this, the 47 discarded their pilgrims' robes, laying bare their weapons and intentions. A regiment of sailors now stood before the guards, sword-wielding men of the sea, and they had come for the body of St. Nicholas. It would all be in vain, however, for the saint would not allow himself to be taken from his Anatolian home of Myra. So said the guards. Leave his home of almost 1,000 years. Preposterous! And anyway, where might these pirates, these rough blasphemers, seek to take his body? To the city of Bari, they answered, for they were Italians, hailing from the region of Apulia. And to this they added, recalling the saying that the good can be served by deceit if it harms no one, that the Pope himself, when His Holiness last visited their city, had organized the present expedition after being visited by St. Nicholas in a dream. Still, ships sail not on goodwill alone. This they knew, and so would offer the guards a generous payment for their troubles. This the honourable 4 refused, whereupon they tried to escape the thieves, running for the basilica's doors, that they might warn the city of the crime befalling it. Alas, the 47 were upon them, and made short work of restraining them. While the party discussed how best to proceed, one of the 2 priests who was with them rested a small glass container which he was carrying, whereupon it somehow fell to the ground, making a loud sound but breaking not. This the Barians took as a sign that they should not delay. Indeed, the spot to which it fell would turn out to be the place where the body they sought was buried. Now an impetuous member of the Apulian party, a young man eager to see the mission through, began to threaten the captives, unsheathing his blade and promising to let it fall on them unless they revealed the whereabouts of the body. It was the eldest of the custodians who, with a hushed, calm voice, bid the boy retire his weapon, for he need only observe where the holy myrrh flowed miraculously, as this indicated the true grave of the saint. However, added the old man, many had tried this thing, including powerful magnets, and all had failed. If the present theft were successful, it would be because St. Nicholas consented to it. Indeed, he went on, there was reason to suppose things might go well for the men of Bari. 1 year prior, 3 residents of Myra had received a vision in which they were led to understand that the saint would leave the city for a new home. There was, then, no cause for further enmity, so soften your threats and rid yourselves of these baneful expressions, he admonished. The young man, whose name was Matthew, agreed, putting away his sword, and henceforth was of good cheer. Indeed, the vision of which the guardian spoke lifted the hearts of all the 47. Surely their intentions were of a piece with the will of the saint. Matthew now began digging in the spot which had been indicated, with the others quickly joining, until they discovered a marble coffin. There was some argument concerning how best to unseal it, but the ever-forward-lunging Matthew grabbed a hammer to smash the sepulchral shell before anyone could stop him. The inside was full of holy oil, supernaturally produced by the body of the confessor, and the young man plunged his hands therein. There rose a perfumed scent, such as to make the men believe they might be standing in paradise. Neither were their comrades deprived, for the fragrance was transported by a breeze through the windows of the basilica, drifting 3 miles hence unto them who had stayed behind to guard the ships. When one of the 2 priests who was present went to pick up the relics from the grave, the holy oil therein enveloped him, which all agreed was a sign of the saint's will that the affair be brought to its conclusion. This priest, whose name was Father Grimwald, put the relics in silk, and the group readied itself to leave, except that one among them bid them pause, suggesting that they also take the icon of Nicholas. This, however, they found was somehow forbidden to them, for some invisible force stopped them. It seemed the saint did not want his old home empty of his presence. After receiving the odor of paradise, the guards of the 3 ships now received hymns of celebration sung by their companions as they returned triumphant. Together they shed tears of gratitude, knowing themselves unworthy of the boon they were making off with. Joined by the 47, the crew now departing totaled 64, 8 groups of 8, and like the 8 reindeer pulling his sleigh, they set sail with Santa Claus among them. Meanwhile, the custodians of the basilica, now free, alerted the city of what had happened, and a sorrowful crowd quickly gathered at the port, seeing off the deliverers of misfortune as they saw it. For 775 years, that body had been among them, and now it would be in some foreign land. Sorrow spurred on anger, and they attacked one of the almsmen of the church, accusing him of allowing this to happen in return for a bribe. But he was supernaturally freed from their wrath, for some invisible force separated them from him. And all who saw this were dumbfounded, agreeing that this man was innocent. The Myrian moans continued to reach the crew at sea, even 2 miles from the coast, and the Barians joined the weeping, feeling great sympathy for those people. They stopped at many places on their way back home, including Patara, birthplace of St. Nicholas. Before reaching it, however, a great and powerful tempest opposed them. Such was its strength that the men considered whether they might not have acted impiously after all. Perhaps the storm would not allow them to deliver their bounty, and they should instead turn back and return it. Then it was suggested that one among them might be responsible for the contrary weather, having stolen a relic from Myra for himself. The Gospels on one of the chapels of the 3 ships were brought out onto the deck, and all the crew was made to swear it had not pilfered any part of the saint. In this way, it came to pass that 5 men admitted to their wrongdoing. After this, at one of their resting stops, one member of the crew fell asleep and dreamt that the saint came to him and promised the whole crew would arrive safely at Bari. By God's will, another sign of good fortune arrived when a bird came to rest on the starboard of the ship which carried the body. It settled on a hand of the officer on deck, and then went to the crate where the relics were stored, kissing it with its beak and singing so beautifully that the crew remarked how even animals recognize saints. Finally, their arrival impending, The sailors built a proper casket for their holy cargo at the port of St. George the Martyr, which is 4 miles from Bari, soon entering the fortunate city. O Bari, with all thy residents, at one with the angelic Jerusalem, exultingly rejoice in thy infinite favours. Rejoice, Bari, without restraint, full of delight. So writes the sage Nicephorus, who provides us with a full account of the events. This image of a particular human community, Bari, uniting with its heavenly archetype, the angelic Jerusalem from John's Apocalypse, has powerful eschatological spiritual resonance, as does the theme of triumphant arrival, an arrival not merely to be awaited, but bravely laid claim to. Once the ships arrived home, and the people of Bari were assembled, the sailors pledged to build a church for the relics so that their new patron might be properly honoured. They asked the Barian folk for permission to carry this out, but while most favoured the proposal, others dissented, arguing that the body should be taken to the episcopal see. During the disputes, the body was entrusted to the abbot of the local Benedictine monastery, a man called Elias. Meanwhile, the Archbishop of Bari, Lord Urso, languished in deciding how to resolve the issue until some suspected him of plotting to take the body away. There was violence, leading to the death of 2 adolescents, one from either party, until finally the original pledge the sailors had made was honoured and a new building was erected in the place of several older ones, honouring the saints to which those had been consecrated, together with Saint Nicholas. Now, with the holy body settled, people flocked to the new church. On that first Sunday night and the Monday after, it is recorded that 47 people, mirroring the 47 thieves, were healed by the presence of St. Nicholas. Injured, diseased, deaf, dumb, blind, insane, and demon-possessed persons, all were restored. Physical and spiritual health befell the people. And all good is from the Maker of all, the merciful, to whom all pious prayer is due, and who sometimes makes holy persons a vehicle for his mercy. People possessed of all kinds of illnesses, who had flocked from all parts of the city, were restored to health when in deep devotion to God they rested in that place. The account by Nicephorus says the following concerning one woman among these.
I earnestly queried her when she was healed concerning what she had seen. She said that a great hawk had flown over her and had landed on her breast and spread his wings to cover her. As he left, suddenly an odor followed, so sweet that she thought she was in the garden of paradise. Some others who were cured said the same thing. In this regard, undoubtedly, it is to be believed that it was the angel of that holy confessor who guards over the holy body day after day.
According to these stories, it seems that dwelling in realms celestial, in the high spheres of majesty, he nonetheless is allowed to retain possession of his earthly body. To this day, when Bari, at one with the heavenly Jerusalem, celebrates her patron, the myrrh of his saintly body is collected and mixed with water before being distributed to the people. From empyrean fire, they believe it is permitted to manifest the nectar of paradise, sending forth the liquor of holiness through the saint's terrestrial presence. A patron to seafarers who in life is said to have rescued storm-swept sailors and who, in death, was borne by them, provides an anchor to remind the faithful that the ship of grace has not passed them by, a reminder of the mercy of the one source of all things.